Hello everyone, Chris Hale here, coming to you again with another Profit Squirrel vlog. How are you all doing? Fantastically well, I hope. How is your match betting going? Let me know. Are you excited for this new football season? Have you been locking in profits already? Give me a shout in the comments below. I'd love to hear how you're getting on. So I've just got back to London. I've been in the Netherlands near to Amsterdam, and that's why I've got a picture of me on the screen with a windmill. It was all paid for with my match betting profits, and I actually carried on match betting whilst I was over there. I was over there for about 5 days and I kept match betting the whole time. If you're wondering how I did that, then you need to check out my video on international match betting. That'll give you tips on how you can carry on making profits whilst you're abroad, whilst you're out of the country. And if you're wondering why I'm talking about the Netherlands, all will come clear very shortly. This is me here. We went to some lovely traditional windmills. There's even some clogs in the background, and you can see my actual background is some of the windmills I've seen. Absolutely beautiful place, Amsterdam. And if you can't afford it, then get match betting and you soon will be able to pay for a trip to Amsterdam, to anywhere else that you want to go to. The world's big, explore it and get out there. So I started off by talking about my trip, partly to let you know about international match betting and how that's still a thing that you can be doing, but also because we are talking about Dutching today. This is going to be the beginner introduction to Dutching. There are a few more advanced things that you can do with it as well, and our calculator does cover that. We're going to have a separate video for the advanced Dutching strategies. This one here, this is just about getting started, understanding it, and getting into it as a beginner. So let's go. So firstly, what is Dutching? Well, what we've got here is we've got the Profit Squirrel Match Betting Dutching Guide. I'm going to link to that in the comments below as always, and that will explain everything that I'm saying here. Just give you a good little reference point. But basically, in a nutshell, Dutching is when you don't actually place a lay bet on a betting exchange. Instead, you actually place one or more other back bets. So for example, you'll place a back bet with bookmaker number one, say William Hill, and then instead of actually laying that bet off, you will actually cover the alternate outcomes by going to a different bookmaker, say Tote Sport or Paddy Power, and then you will back the opposite outcome at that bookmaker. Typically, you can have what is called a two-way Dutch, and that is something you would do, say, on a tennis game. And you can also have a three-way Dutch, which is something that you would do on a sports event where there's an option for a draw. So, for example, like football, rugby, something like that. So you would have one back bet with bookmaker A that, say, Arsenal would win. You would have another back bet with bookmaker B that Arsenal would draw, and you would have a third back bet with bookmaker C that Arsenal would lose. So you're still covering all the possible outcomes, but what it means is you're doing it in a slightly different way. You're not using a betting exchange at all, you are just using bookmakers. So that sounds simple enough, but why would you actually do this? Why would you bother Dutching when there are all those betting exchanges out there and you can just match bet in the normal way? Well, there's a few good reasons for that, and we've got them down here on the screen. So the first one, if you don't have a big enough bankroll to actually deposit into the betting exchange to cover the lay bets, Dutching can be a really good alternative. Now, those of you that have been doing match betting for a little while, you may be starting to realize that it helps to have a healthy level of bank, because particularly when you're doing horse racing offers or other things with higher odds of over 4.0, 5.0, then you're actually going to need a lot of liability at the betting exchange, often hundreds of pounds, in order to really make the most of all the offers out there. And that's not always possible for people. It's not always something that is available, particularly when you're in the early days of match betting. You might not have that amount of money to use. And so by actually Dutching, by doing the back bets, you actually don't need the liability, because a back bet, there is no liability other than the amount that you're actually putting down. So it does present potentially a really great alternative. You don't need a huge bank to be doing this. Second reason that you might want to do some Dutching is if there is not actually much availability in the betting exchange. If there is an offer that you can complete, but actually it's in like a sort of strange market or something a little bit different to the ordinary, there might not be much availability in the betting exchange, therefore you can't place a lay bet there. If that's the case, you can set up a Dutch for yourself, and then you can still benefit from whatever the offer or bonus is, and you can actually cover yourself as well. The third great reason for Dutching is actually if there are no betting exchanges in your country. So I started this video by mentioning international match betting, and of course we listen to your feedback, and we've actually had quite a few requests from members in different countries where there are not betting exchanges. There was a guy from South Africa just the other day wrote into us, said, I like the sound of Profit Squirrel, I like the sound of match match betting sounds really cool, but I'm not really sure how to do it because there are no betting exchanges in South Africa, or at least not any decent ones to speak of. And so hearing stuff like that, I mean, we're always responding to feedback here at Profit Squirrel, and I wanted to push this video forwards. I wanted to get it out there so that people that are in these other countries, they want to do match betting, and it may be possible because there might be bookmaker sign-up offers in those countries. But if there's not a betting exchange, then that shouldn't stop you, because you can still use different bookmakers to actually do basically the same thing. A fourth good reason, and you'll know this if you've watched my tennis retirement rules video, is that not all bookmakers and exchanges share the same tennis retirement rules. So I've got this post up here. I've mentioned it before. Just get rid of that little pop-up, and I'm going to link to this post in the comments below as usual, of course. And in this video I talk about the different bookmakers and exchanges. We group them into basically 4 groups, and we discuss all the different ways in which these bookmakers treat retirement in tennis, or they treat disqualification in tennis events. This is something that is particularly relevant for things like Wimbledon, the French Open, all of the big tennis Grand Slams around the world. They all have great match betting offers, but you do need to be aware of these tennis retirement rules. If you're not really sure what I mean by that and you don't really understand, then don't worry, I've got a video for you, because I actually did a tennis retirement rules video just the other week. So I'm going to also link to that below as well. Go and check that out if you want to do tennis offers. And I do mention Dutching in that video, so these 2 videos go well together. The 5th reason, pretty similar to the international reason, but there could be any number of reasons why you don't have access to a betting exchange. If that's you, then no problem at all. You might still be in the UK, but you can still Dutch. You don't need to be abroad to actually do this. And the final good reason for Dutching tends to be with horse racing events. And if those are happening, what you can find is there are different offers at different bookmakers. And sometimes what you can do is you can actually qualify for multiple offers at multiple bookmakers just with one set of Dutch bets. And that's really useful because you don't need to get a betting exchange involved. As mentioned before, you sort of save on liability, and you can actually get multiple birds, qualify for multiple offers with one stone, as it were. So cool. The only thing I would say about Dutching just to be aware of is it can take a little bit of work. Like, there is a few more bets often that you have to put on. But as with all things in match betting, once you start getting used to it, once you understand what you're doing, then it's going to be pretty simple, and also pretty fast to do. So how do you do it? Well, let me run you through a little example. The first thing you'll need to do is go to the advanced calculator section and find the Dutching calculator. So you can either click this little bit here at the bottom of the article if you're on the Dutching guide, or the classic traditional way is to go into the menu on the left hand side, click odds calculators, click advanced calculators, and that will load up the screen for you. Now it is under this qualifying bets category here, and it is called Dutching. Give that a click and it will scroll down, bring up the Dutching calculator for you. So as mentioned, there's normally 2 types of Dutching that you do. There's one that's called a 2-way and there's one that's called a 3-way Dutch. And basically these depend on the sport. So 2-way is basically when you're trying to cover 2 potential outcomes, and 3-way is when you're trying to cover 3 potential outcomes. We don't really go up to 4-way, 5-way, anything like that, because for most events there's not really that many outcomes that are possible, so you don't really need to go up there. You can kind of cover it all with up to 3. So this is a really simple calculator. I've got it on the simple mode here. As I mentioned before, I'm going to do another video explaining the advanced mode, but we won't get into that here. We'll make sure that simple is selected, and I'm going to show you a 3-way example. Don't worry about this total stake override box here. Again, that's a bit more of an advanced thing, and we'll come to that in a later video. The area that you should pay attention to is these 3 sections here. So we've got bookmaker A, bookmaker B, and bookmaker C. And all of these sections are exactly the same. And you will recognize this as basically a simple calculator, but just for multiple bookmakers. You can do this as a normal, aka a qualifying bet, or you can select free bet SNR if you're using a free bet on one of the bookmakers, and you can do that independently on each different bookmaker. You can see I can select the different ones here, and you might want to do that if you're qualifying for a certain offer at one bookmaker and another bookmaker you're just using it to Dutch, so you're not going to get any offer, but you're just backing there to cover all of your other bets. So essentially what this calculator does is we take bookmaker A to start with, and that is where we put our initial back stake and the back odds as well. And then in all of the other sections, what we're going to do is we're going to put the back odds down here, that we're seeing at the bookmaker, and then the calculator is going to tell us the back stake that we need to place at those other bookmakers. So basically what this is doing, it's kind of working out the equivalent of the lay stake if you were backing and laying, but we're just calling it the back stake here because that's what it is. You're placing back bets with the bookmakers, but it's exactly the same concept, and you'll see how that works. So let's take an example, right? So say there was an offer on a football match, and you could say bet 50, get 50 or something, and it was a match, say, I don't know, Arsenal versus Liverpool, right? So as you know, with that game, there's potentially 3 outcomes if we're backing Arsenal each time. So we can back Arsenal to win, we can say that there will be a draw, or we can back Liverpool to win, which is basically saying Arsenal are going to lose. Those are the 3 potential outcomes, and then these are the 3 sections that correspond to the bookmakers that we have here. So in this back stake box, you can see it's already populated with £50. I could put 10, I could put 20 or whatever, but in this example, that's what you put on your bookmaker number 1, and that's normally what you need to do to qualify for a given offer. And then you put in the back odds here that we're seeing of, say, Arsenal winning. So I don't know, just making it up, 3.0. Next, we go ahead and we load up bookmaker B, we bring up the same event and we check out the odds there. And what we're looking at here is the odds of a draw. And I'm not quite sure what that would be, but for example, it could be around, say, 3.4 or something like that. You're going to look at the event in the sportsbook of that bookmaker, and of course they're going to have different odds, and this is the example here. You know, you just pick out the one that is a draw or whatever you want to use that bookmaker for. So then we go ahead and we load up bookmaker number 3, or bookmaker C as we've called it here, and in this case you wanted to cover the final outcome, which is that Arsenal do not win, say Liverpool win, and then you look up the back odds for that and you will place your back bet at those odds. So we go ahead and say, I don't know, 4.2, that's the odds on Liverpool winning. So here we are, we've covered all of the outcomes, and then you go ahead and you hit calculate, and what that'll do, that'll tell you the exact back stakes to place at these odds here at the bookmaker. Here we are, 44.12, 35.71, and then it also tells you what your outcome will be of this offer as well. So this is quite a good outcome as well if you can actually find this sort of combination of odds. I mean, I've just made this up. This may not really be that realistic in terms of what you'd see out in the market, but if you could find something like this, you can actually make quite a nice profit as well. But normally what we'd be doing is we'd be actually using this in order to qualify for a specific offer. And then one thing I'll bring your attention to as well is this stake rounding button. So in most bookmakers, you can't actually place a decimal point of a bet. Like, you can't have £44.12 as a bet. It needs to be to the nearest pound, for example. So you can use this stake rounding box and you can round it to the nearest amount that is useful for you at that bookmaker. So plus £1, that rounds it up to the nearest pound, minus £1, that rounds it down to the nearest pound, and so on with the 5 and the 10. So say I want to round it up to the nearest pound, I'll just select that on both of these here. We don't need to do it on the first one because that's already a round number. We'll go ahead, we'll hit calculate, and that will, as you see, round it up to £45 and £36, and it will adjust your outcome accordingly. For tennis, you would repeat exactly the same thing. You would go ahead and you'd click two-way, and that sort of disables this area here at the bottom. And basically what that then means is you're betting with bookmaker A that tennis player 1 will win, and then you're betting at bookmaker B that tennis player 2 will win. You're covering all the outcomes, and then what you want to make sure you're doing is the bookmakers that you're choosing, bookmaker A and B, they need to be within the same group, the same tennis retirement rules group. So here we have the tennis retirement rules article, and you see like all of these bookmakers here at the time of recording this, and of course double check it with the bookmaker if you're in any doubt at all, but you can actually see all of the different bookmakers that share the same tennis retirement rules. So say you want to qualify for a bet with 888 Sport, and it's a £10 bet, and you want to Dutch that with another bookmaker, then you can actually go ahead and say, I don't know, pick any of these, Grosvenor, Genting, whatever, they'll be your bookmaker B. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that gives you a little overview and idea of what Dutching is. Look out for offers in the daily offer section that mention Dutching. The tennis ones are pretty common, as I mentioned, but also there might be other opportunities to do it well with other sports events. and go ahead and give it a go. If you understand the basic back and lay of match betting, this is really just a small adjustment, a small tweak on that, so you should find it pretty easy. But of course, ask me any questions below or ask in the Profit Squirrel forum. Get in touch however you want if there's something you're not sure about or if you have any ideas or comments. Let me know if you've enjoyed this video. I love hearing from you, and hit that like button, of course, if you enjoyed it as well, if this was helpful to you. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Profit Squirrel. Follow us here on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button and don't miss out on the latest content on match betting and making money online. We have new videos every week, and this is the place that you need to be to hear about all of that. Happy Dutching, happy matching. I'll see you all again in another vlog very, very soon.